Hi everyone, my name is Karen and welcome to my tutorial today for Tim Holtz and Stencilgirl. So when we heard about the Tim Holtz blog hop here with Stencilgirl, I was super excited because Tim Holtz and Ranger products and the distress inks, going back in the day, they were the first things that I bought when I started getting into mixed media. So I was really excited to get to work with the products. I still have my distress inks and I remember a world before we had all of the distress products. So I got to play with the distress Oxide inks and I was really excited to do that. But then when I got started I was like, what am I going to do with these? How do I combine my inks in a stamp pad and my stencils? They're just two totally different products. And I really racked my brains, but I played around in my sketchbook and I came up with a really cool technique using gesso as a resist, which I hope that you will enjoy. So before we get started with the tutorial, I would really love it if you would like the video and subscribe to my channel because I've got a whole bunch of other videos for you to watch and enjoy and lots more tutorials coming. When you're finished watching the tutorial, I want you to be sure to visit my blog post. The link is in the description box below and you will see there all of the details that you need to do to enter the prize for the giveaway that Stencilgirl is offering for this particular blog hop. So I hope you really enjoy the tutorial and we'll see you soon. So hi everyone, we're going to get started with our tutorial here. Now as you can see I have got some company here. This is Archie and to be honest it's more work to chase him off the table than to just let him do his thing. He always seems to know when I'm starting to film and always makes an appearance. So I'm just getting on with it now at this stage. So for the tutorial we're going to be using these absolutely gorgeous distress ink oxides from Tim Holtz, and we are also going to be working with the Klimt Forest stencil here. I really love this stencil, it's a really gorgeous one, so I'm looking forward to making a page with it. So I already have a very good idea about where this page is going to go, but I'm also going to kind of wing it a little bit and see how it looks as I'm going along. So the colours that I have are picked raspberry, seedless preserves and salty ocean. So this spread is going to be a 2-page spread and I'm going to be doing a cut out section. So I'm going to be using my larger A4 journal. This is a blue sky journal and I'm going to be using this page and this page. So we're going to go ahead and get started on the back page first. This is the page that we're going to have as our background, and then this page here will have the stencil on it and it will be cut out of different sections as well, so I think it's going to be looking really nice. So for the background I want to create kind of a night sky sunset kind of background, so I'm going to be working with the salty ocean and the seedless preserves probably at the moment, but mostly the salty ocean. So I'm going to go ahead and make my background with the salty ocean and I'm going to use a cosmetic sponge to apply the distress oxide onto my page. I found that worked really well for my page and for blending the two colours together. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. So now I have added in the blue to the background, I'm going to activate it now with some water and I'm going to just use a spray bottle and I'm just going to spray some water on top of the ink. So be prepared for the cat to run now because I don't think he'll like this. Okay, so straight away you can see that that's activated and it has turned this lovely kind of mottled colour here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add in some of the seedless preserves just to give the background a little bit more texture, and I'll add more water in on top of that as well. Okay, so here is my background. I'm just going to let it dry a little bit more, but I love how it's turned out, and with the water on top of the ink pads and the oxidization, it really looks like a kind of a galaxy or night sky. It really looks gorgeous. So I'm super happy with that. So we're going to move on to the next step now. So for the second part, we're going to be working on the page in front of the background that we just created. So here is our background, and here's the page in front of it. So I've just taped the stencil down very loosely with some washi tape to just stop it from moving around too much when I'm going to be putting the paint on. So when I was playing with the Distress Oxides, I tried a few different things because I had this in mind, and I was struggling to figure out how I was going to use the inks and the stencil that I wanted and to create the page that I wanted. So when I was playing, I kind of thought, well, how could we create maybe like a resist for the Distress Oxides, so that we had some places where there was oxide and some places where there wasn't, and play with that with the stencil. So what I found was the gesso really created a nice resist for the oxide on top of it. It doesn't sit on it as well. It stains it a little bit, but you can still see the paint through it quite significantly. So I thought that would be really cool to use with this stencil. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gesso over the top of this, just like I would if I was using paint. So I'm afraid this bit might be a little bit boring for you because it's white on white, so I don't know how well the camera is going to pick it up for you. But I'm definitely going to be going into detail in all of these areas here, all of the different line work and everything here. But when it comes to the trees, I'm going to just stick to the edges, so I'm not going to fill in the whole shape here, so that I've got a nice bit of where the line of the stencil is. That's going to be the Distress Oxide, and the inside of it is going to be like white with gesso, but there will be still some Distress Oxide in the middle when we put it on top. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. Okay, so I'm not sure how well the camera is going to pick this up, but we have our trees there in the background. I can see them very clearly, but I'm not sure how well the camera light will pick it up. So what I'm going to go ahead and do now is I'm going to work starting off with the raspberry, so that I've got a lighter foreground, and I'm going to work in a little bit of the seedless preserves as well. So much the same as we did with our background here. I'm going to apply it with a cosmetic sponge and the ink pad on the page as well. And what we should find is when we add on the Distress Oxide, you will see the stencil become revealed, because the areas that have the gesso on it will resist the Distress Oxide, and we should see the design coming through really nicely now. Already just from the small background area here, you can see that we can really see the design of the stencil coming through. So the lighter areas are where the gesso is, and the darker areas is where I have no gesso. So it's almost like, you know, when you were a kid and you had that infrared pen and you would write a message and then you would shine the special light on it and it would come through. It's almost like that kind of an effect, and I think it's looking really cool. So I'm going to go ahead and get started on finishing the rest of the page. really see the design come through now, and it looks really gorgeous. I like the different textures that we have in the trees because some parts had the gesso, some parts didn't. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to spray some water over the top of the distress inks to activate them. So, oh yeah, we've got some really nice effects going on there now. It's a really nice background. So I'm going to add in some of the seedless preserves just to give it a little bit more dimension, much like I did on the background for the sky as well. Just look actually at how much it's changed where the gesso is. You can really see that the gesso has really helped to resist it, and then with the water on top of it, it's an even better effect, I think. Okay, so I've cut out some different sections of my trees here to create the skyline and also just a little bit of extra shading in the background, so it's just peeking through on your foreground. Make sure it's dry 100% when you go to cut it out. Mine is not absolutely 100% dry, and it had puckered a little bit in some of the places, so I had to kind of go back and tidy that up. So you can give it a blast with the heat gun or just make sure that it's completely dry, because when you spritz the water on top, the water that does not have the gesso in absorbs all the water and also all of the ink, so it stays wet for a lot longer. So for my background, I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add in some stars. So I'm going to go ahead with some silver ink and with a fan brush and just kind of sprinkle some stars across there and just add a few finishing touches to my page. And there we have my page done. I really am in love with it. I love how the distress oxides have reacted with themselves, with the water, with the gesso, and I think it gives you a really nice way of using your stencils with the distress oxides as well. There are so many stencils in Stencilgirl's collection and they would all work really well with this technique, and I love the double layer of the forest and then kind of the night sky with the stars as well. Couldn't find my silver ink, as always, isn't it the way when you need it, but my white ink did just as well, and I'm really in love with the page. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial and you give this technique a try for yourself. Thanks so much for watching, bye!